Welcome back to the Hot Stove, Gary Hill, Shannon, Drayer. We are visited by Cal Raleigh. Cal, it is great to see you once again. How has your off season been, my friend?
Yeah, it's good to see you guys. It's been good. Just gearing up for another season here. So
Well, we have seen you around town this off season. You've been spotted at Kraken games, Seahawks games, Huskies games. What has it been like spending time in the off season around Seattle, going out and about and seeing all the fans?
yeah, it's fun. Take away the rain and probably be a little better, but I know that's how it is there, but it's been good, like you said, just kind of getting to enjoy some downtime, going to some shows, some games, doing things that you normally don't get to do in season, so trying to take it all in.
Cal, that was one of my favorite games this winter, has been playing Where's Cal on social media because I mean it was awesome to see you. It looked like you were just really having so much fun. And I mean, how different was this off season for you? And how much of an effort did you make to, you know what, I'm going to go out and I'm going to do things?
Yeah, I mean, I got to, I did a lot of traveling. Typically the first part of off seasons, I try to, I gotta go, do my rounds. So go see family, uh, go see some friends, try to get some golf in. Usually there's some weddings involved thrown in there, maybe a couple of camps or something like that thrown in. And so I stay pretty busy in the off seasons. Obviously they're all a little different, but I was definitely up and at it, for a couple months there.
What was the favorite thing that you did this off season?
Um, I got to go to Ireland for a wedding, a former teammate. So that was pretty cool getting to go there. Never been across the pond before. Very cool place Dublin is. Got to go to a rugby game there, which was cool. Very eye opening and um besides that, it was pretty low key. I just saw some family, did some stuff like that. Obviously, went to a bunch of games and to enjoy some downtime.
Hey, Cal, I think I got an idea for you. I'm kind of getting the feeling that you might have a little influence in this game right now. And I think we need to have a game in Ireland. Perhaps Mariners and Red Sox.
Um, well, I mean, yeah, that'd be great, but I don't even know if they know what baseball is over there. So, yeah, I mean, it'd be cool. That'd be one heck of a talk about a long flight, to and from. Uh, that was but it'd be fun, I think anytime you could do something overseas was fun. I know they went to Japan a couple years ago, so maybe one day we'll get to go back somewhere.
Hey, where was the strangest place you were recognized or the place you were most surprised to be recognized this winter?
That was recognized.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's a good question. I had a couple things in Las Vegas. I did Sports Illustrated had something there, and obviously the MLB awards were there as well. So I went there, did that. Did a few things in Seattle as well, which that's not really a surprise, but just Seattle being Seattle. But yeah, I'd say probably most of the stuff was on the West Coast, and I don't think there was anything on the East.
Cal, thinking about your season last year and the team's season last year, of course, you had this incredible individual year. The Mariners made it closest to the World Series they've ever been. You win a division title. You had that magnificent series, thrilling win against Detroit. There is so much that happened last year as you've now there's been some time in between the heartbreak at the end of the season, all the highs of last year as well. What are kind of your overall thoughts reflecting on everything that happened last season?
Um, you know, like obviously left a sour taste in our mouths. It was I said it too, I don't want to take from everything because we did have a great season and that's nothing to be ashamed of at all. But ultimately, we fell a little short, and obviously how that last game ended hurt, and that's gonna be a big motivation factor heading into this year. For not just me, but everybody else as well. I think they have that similar feeling as well, and we can't be have that satisfied feeling heading into this year. I think trying to learn from years past and understanding that this is a whole new year, and nothing's gonna be given to us. We have a lot of as well in this division, so we got our hands full for this next season upcoming, and kind of wash that away and come ready to work for 2026.
Cal, how do you weigh that? I mean, there are so many different parts to a season, and the ultimate goal, it's 162 games away. And then to me, everything just changed the minute you guys got into the postseason. It was almost like a different game, a different intensity. How do you look at going through an entire season? Do you build toward that? Is it you have to be at one point at one part of the season and another at the other? And, maybe not win-loss record, but how you're playing and where you're at? Do you give yourself time here and there where it's not, you know, all out crazy the way that it is towards the end of the season? How have you learned anything different about the progress and the progression of a season with an off season or with a postseason as the ultimate goal, legitimate goal in mind, and the potential of an extra month?
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, I think you treat each game, as you try to win just one game. You're not trying to, that's for the people upstairs, and them trying to put together a team and all that. Obviously there's advanced numbers out there and all that, but at the end of the day, you just try to rack up as many wins as possible, and the best way to do that is just focusing one day at a time and just trying to win today. Worry about tomorrow when it gets here. So to me, it's about prepping. You prep yourself in the off season, and obviously with us playing a whole month, it's a little different of an off season look. It's not as long. We didn't have as much time to rest per se, but I think the guys are doing what they need to do to prep and get ready. Come spring training, come season time, to be ready to go for 162. And I've talked about that before with making sure that you're doing the things you're supposed to be doing in the off season, so that when you get when it comes time to go, things are a little easier and you're not second guessing yourself. So with all that said, like, really just trying to win the day. I don't think it's baseball. You're not trying to, you can't plan, you can't think too hard ahead or far ahead. You have to just focus on the now and focus on the one at bat, and then take it to the next one, and then you do a game, and so forth. So
Josh Naylor had such a big impact for you guys last year, and he, of course, is back. He is going to be a Mariner for a long time. How much does it mean that Josh Naylor is back with you guys?
yeah, it's amazing. It's so crazy that that deal got done so fast. It was it was awesome to see. I think everybody on the team was pumped up to see him come back. We loved getting to play with him for those, I don't know, was it a couple months or so. Great guy, great teammate, great ball player. Brings a good edge to the team that we all love. And he's a winner. He's been in a couple places, and he's a proven winner and a guy who plays the game the right way, and for us to lock him up like that was a huge add. I just I loved getting to play with him, so, and I think it fired everybody up early on.
Were you surprised that it was that fast, or did you have an idea that, you know what, he seems pretty happy here, this could happen pretty quickly?
Yeah, I mean, you never know, right? I mean, kudos to him. He earned the right to get to free agency, and he was able to get to talk to other teams, and it was up to him ultimately. And I think that's what every player, eventually gets to dream about is getting the choice to choose where they want to play. And, he got that option. And hopefully it sounds like we made a good enough impression, that he, ultimately felt comfortable in signing here. And obviously, the numbers, the, financial side was right. But I think, a lot of it did play of what happened played a big role in ultimately him signing here and feeling comfortable and liking what we were doing here. So like I said, I'm excited to have him on the squad for the next 5 years.
What is the impact that he can have, kind of the intangibles, the influence that he has, be it through his play, his attitude, what he does on the field? What did you see in the short time that you guys were with him this fall?
Yeah, he brings a confidence to the table, that, in a sport of failure and in a sport of, so much that can go wrong, especially from the hitting side, you just you're constantly having to learn how to deal with failure, and it's a tough game and it's really hard. And he brings a great confidence to the field every day of not just for himself but for the team, and he exudes that through everybody. And I think with combining that with his desire and will to win, it makes it very refreshing. And makes it that's somebody I want to go to war with. That's somebody I want to play next to every single day, because I never have to question if he's going to be ready or if he's going to be giving it his all each day. We all know he's doing that, and the fact that it's shining through other players is definitely positive.
So, Cal, I don't know if you know this, but because of your season last year, before just about every game, 2 months into the season, we would have a meeting about, okay, if Cal homers today, what does this mean? What is the significance of this one? Because seemingly every home run that you would hit along the way became such a big deal. It's breaking this record or this record. You're passing this guy or this guy. And it's all the big name. It's Bench, it's Griffey, Mantle. All these records are going down through the course of the season until you got to 60. When you look back on all those home runs, do you have a favorite of all those home runs that you hit last season?
Uh, they were all great in their own right. I think to me, I think 60 was really cool just because of obviously the night of getting to clinch the division for the first time in 20 something years. And throw on top of that just the even number of 60. And I didn't even think that was possible. So obviously that all speaks for itself. But I think with that night, and with the fans, and it being full house, and winning division was a special night for us.
Cal, have you, I know in some past off seasons you've focused in on something very specific. It might be hitting from the right side, it might be pitch framing and seeking out people to talk about that. Was there something that you looked at in particular this winter?
Yeah, there were some things, I think trying to get my arm stronger, put it in a good spot throughout the year. You're always just trying to up the floor, and trying to continue to be good in that aspect. So I think trying to get my arm stronger was a point of emphasis. I think catching, with what's coming with the ABS challenge system, it makes it kind of interesting with uh, you know, pitch framing and receiving. So it's something that feel like last year, I wasn't bad, but I could have been better in some areas, receiving the ball and defensively. So just really honing back in on keeping strikes. And obviously this year it's gonna be a little different with the challenge system. So really just trying to focus on how to use that, and really right now just trying to have a little more conversation about understanding the strike zone, and um, like I said, keeping strikes, and not giving up on pitches and just always continuing to work on receiving the ball. So
I'm so glad you brought that up because I've been thinking about this system coming up into this season, and I still feel like framing is really going to matter because the challenges are so limited. Like you can't necessarily challenge, or you probably shouldn't necessarily challenge a close pitch in the fourth inning with two outs on a nothing count. You know what I mean? It feels like you're going to have to pick your spots, whether you're catching or hitting, to make a challenge. How are you thinking about framing and challenges and this whole new world that we're entering?
yeah, it's interesting. I think you brought up a good point. It's a lot of it's just going to be strategy. It's going to be making sure that you're doing it at the right times. You're being smart about it. It's not all pitches are equal, right? As much as we like to say they are, they're not. The pitch in the seventh inning when you're down by one, bases loaded, two outs, might be a little different than the pitch in the second inning, nobody on, nobody out. I mean, obviously, you never know which pitch is going to be the complete outcome of the game, but with this system and with challenges, you'd like to be able to have uh, you know, your your challenges remaining later in the game when things are happening, when you can get that extra run across, or when you can tie the game, or maybe you can save a bullpen arm. It's things like that you got to start thinking about. So, to me, it's just going to be about putting aside ego. I think that's a big thing for everybody. Everybody has a little bit of an ego, and they want to do well, and you want to make sure you never want to be wrong. And at the same time, you gotta put the team first, and you gotta understand making sure that you're doing the right things with challenging it or not challenging it. But obviously, we have professional hitters here, and guys that know the strike zone pretty well. So, hopefully they can use their judgment in the right way. And if they're 100% certain it's a ball, being smart and using that challenge. But I think that's the whole point of the ABS challenge system in general, is to just take away from the super egregious calls, and we'll see more of it, in spring training and get a better feel for it. But I think that's kind of the thoughts on it for now.
Given that it is limited in how much it will be used, how much do you think that ultimately is if it is kept the same going to affect the catcher position?
Yeah, I think obviously, I wasn't a proponent of doing this system. I just think there's a lot of tough things about it with heights and different zones, and where is crossing? Is it 3D? Is it not 3D? Is it so I mean there's a lot of factors that go into it, but ultimately this is what it is, and I'm glad they chose to do a challenge system over a full automated balls and strikes. I think you got at least some human aspect to the game, and um I think by doing the challenge system and leaving it at a few challenges, it helps, keep the fans, engaged, while also, keeping the human element, and not going to a complete robot system, because I don't think that's what anybody, really wants.
Shannon, a moment ago, asked you about things you work on in the off season, and one of the things that stood out to me is the damage you did last year from the right side. What do you think was the key during the course of the season with everything you did against lefties during the course of the year?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just continuing to try to stay consistent and trust my plan, and what I was trying to do at the plate from the right side, and try to do it on both sides of the plate. I just think it's one of those things. Some years I've had this ever since I can remember. There's some years where I've had better numbers on the right side, and there's some years where I've had better numbers on the left side. So, um, ultimately, I think obviously continuing to get at bats over the past couple of years from the right side and playing every day has helped, and it's helped me get back into that groove of being from being consistent from both sides. So I think that's ultimately helped, and like I said, just trusting what I'm trying to do at the plate every single day.
Cal, it's always
making sure
sounded like you do make tweaks here and there, but your biggest shift
making sure
that's led to some of the
making sure
success has been mental. Would you say that's been more so
making sure
than a physical change?
making sure
Yeah, I think so. Every it's this game is challenging and it's really hard, and the more that I've played and understood this game, the it's crazy how, simple we can make it sometimes, and how this game really isn't different from, when you're 11 years old. You're just facing better pitchers. The game's faster, the game is harder, obviously, yes, but understanding that it's a lot of it's,
making
most
sure
of it is between the ears, and understanding that. And I think for a lot of guys that's not a sexy answer, because that's not, I can't see it, there's no data behind it, there's no I can't see it on paper, so it must not be true. But I just don't believe in that. I think, mentally, having confidence, sticking to your plan, trusting yourself, being prepared every single day,
making sure
being in a good spot, discipline, things like that are, ultimately, about being professional. And I think that's what, can take you a long way. Obviously physical changes are great. Some guys need to do them, some guys don't need to do them. But I think a lot of the mental ends up controlling, the outcomes of the physical. And, um, I think there's a happy medium. I think, obviously there's always some physical things you want to work on, but understanding that, when you get in between the lines, and, it's go time, and, there's no time to sit there thinking about, physical things, or swing mechanics, things like that, pitching mechanics, whatever it may be for position wise. But at the end of the day, it's going to be about who can think the right things, do the right things, be disciplined enough in the box or on the mound, and be able to repeat over and over consistently, because over the long haul, that's what's going to be beneficial for you and the team.
Okay, along
making
those
sure
lines, as you were moving through the course of
making
last
sure
year and piling up the numbers,
making sure
did you find teams were approaching
making sure
you differently as the season went on?
Um, I mean, yeah, I mean, that's, but it's no different than any other year. You have stretches where you do well, and you have stretches where you don't do well. And, the league, once the league finds a hole, they're going to keep pounding that hole until, you prove that you can hit it, or you prove that you can, do something about it. So, I had to learn that early on. And, last year there was, obviously, you understand, where you're in the lineup. You understand when you're hitting well and when you're not hitting well, and just understanding game situations. I think, some teams obviously, would be pitch a little different than others, and
making
but
sure
it varies. It varies from guy to guy. It varies from time to time during the year, and it's just the constant cat and mouse that you hear usually through the game of baseball.
Cal, all of
making sure
those things, how much of that, we'll probably see a young player or two position player this year up with the club. How much of that can you impart on them, either by example or by a word when needed, that can help at that point?
making sure
Yeah, I think it's the game is very daunting when you come up. It's very it can cast a big shadow, and it can be hard. It can be hard to, find your way. And, so I think for any of us, any guys that have been here for a while, it's part of our duty, part of our job to help, younger guys, help guys who are just coming up. It's help them, learn the ways, and learn how to become a professional. And then, what does that mean? It means, some of those things I was talking about earlier, understanding that, you know, you're here, you're talented, you have a good swing, you have good mechanics. Really the majority of it's going to be between the ears. It's going to be understanding, how are they pitching me? Um, how do I want to fail? What am I going to be looking for here? And just consistently be able to repeat that, and understand that, you don't have to be a guy that goes out and hits, 30 home runs or gets the big home run or gets the big hit. You just need to consistently have good at bats and show that you can make good contact. So
Because that's your job.
this, whoever, hey,
Kidding.
some people respond differently to different people. So I'm not always right, but I definitely had many mentors over the years, and you try to give back in the same way.
Finally, Cal, I know you've been around
Hey, Raligh,
town.
here's what-
You know Mariner fans are super excited about this upcoming season, very optimistic about this upcoming season. What would your message be to Mariner fans as we get closer and closer to this season starting?
Yeah, obviously, I think just first off, thank you for a great season and being there for us last year. It was a really special year, but just understanding that's a new year. It's a new year, it's a new team. Um, there's gonna be we're gonna go through some some good times and some bad times, and it's just about sticking with us and continuing to show up like they have been last year, so or last couple of years. So they've been great. We love the fans. We love getting to deal with them. It's always fun getting to play at our home park. So just continuing to come out and support and give us that extra boost that we always feel like we have at home.
Well, Cal, thanks for all the time tonight. We really appreciate it. And in no time at all, we'll see you down in spring.
Yeah, see you guys in the desert soon.